listener production.
Hey, Tom here with you for the weekend briefing, and this episode is an incredibly open, honest and wide-ranging conversation with literally the most popular person on TV right now. He actually has the Logie to prove it. I'm talking about Tony Armstrong.
And the TV Week Logie goes to Tony Armstrong!
So Tony Armstrong is the former AFL player who then suddenly seemed like he was everywhere. His moustache, his cheeky smile, is now all over our TVs. So the backstory with Tony is that he had an Indigenous father from Barrambinya country in far western New South Wales, but he was raised by his white mother in Sydney and then out in the country where the dream kicked in to be an AFL player. And the dream really took off. He played for the Adelaide Crows, the Sydney Swans and Collingwood, but in 2015 the footy dream ended. He was cut from Collingwood for basically not cutting it. It was heavy. He was still in his mid-20s and the dream that he'd worked his whole life for was over. Then you cut to now, and he's in an absolutely purple patch. He's the sports presenter on ABCTV News Breakfast, a regular on the project. He's on The Weekly. He has 2 Logies. He's done 2 documentary series with the ABC, and he's now got a podcast called The Pool Room, which we'll discuss. But in this interview, what we're going to do, we're going to find out what happened in between, how he rebuilt from the sudden end of his football career to what he's doing now, and what shaped him in between. And funnily enough, it turns out that I actually met him in person in 2015, right as he was hitting that painful moment of letting go of his AFL dream and his whole identity, basically. And we met, of all places, deep in the back room of a nightclub, where all good conversations happen, of course. And at that point, neither of us had any idea where his life would eventually go and where it's come to now. So let's get into it. Hey, Tony, thanks so much for coming on the weekend briefing.
Hey, Tom, it's great to see you, mate. Good to see that things are going well for you. It's been a while since we've had a chat.
Yeah, it's been way too long. Actually, the first conversation we ever had was a very interesting one. It was about almost exactly 9 years ago in the back room of a Melbourne nightclub, and you and I had a great D&M. Not sure if you remember.
I do. I do.
But in hindsight, that was a very interesting turning point, or maybe just before a turning point in your life. What's happened since, in the last 9 to 10 years for you has been wild to witness. So let's go back to that moment.
Yeah.
Because looking at the history books, you were right at the end of your footy career, probably going through one of the toughest points of your life.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't think we were going to be talking about alleyways and nightclubs, but here we are. But no, we did. We had a chat. I can't remember the name of the place, but it's down. It used to be down a corner, probably still is. Down this little alleyway upstairs somewhere in Melbourne. It was great. We were having a great old time. But yeah, I was coming to the end of my footy career and probably about to have a bit of an existential crisis, I reckon. I didn't realise it at the time. I didn't realise how much of my identity was wrapped up in football. I didn't know what I didn't know. So when footy finished, I had a full-on identity crisis because my whole adult life and even my late teens as well, I had always just viewed myself as sort of like the footballer and the person were inseparable. And then I kind of realised a few years out that was just a job I did, and who I am and who I was, who I'm trying to be now isn't the TV dude or the podcast guy. That's they're things I do, and sure, they add to my identity, but I don't think they're who I am. And I think having that separation is really important. But at the time, I had no idea. So I was walking the plank without realising it, so to speak.
Well, that's the power of a big life change, isn't it? That you learn that the pain and the teacher that pain is, but also that you learn that whatever stage of life you go through, there's these commonalities that make you who you are, that you'll take through each of them rather than being pegged to the external part of the identity that you had.
It's amazing as well how hindsight like allows you to look at it and just so clearly see what you didn't realize. I know I must sound like a washed up fossil, but it's like it's so funny because if like, you know, sort of 25-year-old me was listening to 34-year-old me, I'd say, shut up, like shut up, man. You know, what do you know? I know I'm 25, I'm 26. I've lived. I know what's going on. It takes a long time, I think, to become properly comfortable in yourself as well. And then I think once you get to that point, once you become comfortable in yourself, then you can actually detach what you're doing from your identity, I think, a little bit more because you kind of stop caring, right? Like you just worry about doing the things you know makes you who you are, a good person, all those kind of things. And then everything else is just kind of how you keep the lights on, I suppose.
So what were the next few years like? So we're talking from your last game of footy, which was 2015. Where does your life go from there? Talk us through the next few patches.
Oh, man, like I struggled a bit. I bounced around, going to a few jobs. Just played a bit of local footy. I needed the cash. I was very much living a, you know, paycheck to paycheck type lifestyle. Really aimless, you know. I tried to write it. Not tried. I did write a few articles, some opinion pieces in the rags down here being Melbourne, and that was okay. Like they went all right, but I didn't really think there was a huge future in it. I was just basically taking whatever opportunity came my way, and then fortuitously, I ran into Chris Johnson, former Brisbane Lion, now working at Channel 7, amongst other things, as a pundit. And there still is an National Indigenous radio service. And he just asked me, he goes, brother, like, would you consider doing some special commentary? Now, this must be 2017, 2018 maybe, around then. Maybe it was 2019 even. Anyway, there was a big patch of time where I was doing not much.
That is a few years in between, though, to sort of after a heavily regimented life of elite level training and games and your whole calendar being set out for you. There's some big gaps of some big spaces of time.
Yeah, no. So like I really struggled. Basically, is what I'm saying. And then a fortuitous knock on the figurative door. By Chris Johnson, and then that kind of snowballed. I said, yeah, why not? Everything else I'm struggling with. And then, I just started commentating. I started doing special comments, and then I tried my hand at play-by-play commentary, and then everything just kind of snowballed. Like I feel like I had a knack for it instantly, and then I kind of found something that I could put all that regimented hard work stuff into, because before that I didn't really have anything to channel it into. And then, you know, I fast forward not that long, 6 years, give or take, to where we are now. And, you know, things are far sight different, I've got to say. Yeah. We get told that if you work hard at something, you get what you want. You know, it's like hard work pays off.
This symmetrical relationship between hard work and the payoff. And there's so many other factors that go into it that can change that equation and send it any direction.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, you know, you hang your hat on that as well. You keep on hanging your hat on it when things aren't going well. So for me, it was like not getting picked in footy, this, that, the other. But you're working hard. So eventually the wheel will turn. And then it doesn't. And you're like, oh, God, I'm caught out. I'm in the ocean. The tide's out, and I've got my pants down. You know, like. Yeah.
The problem with the work hard fallacy is that then you end up just blaming yourself if it doesn't work out. But you know, it's sport. There's winners and losers.
Oh, I know.
It's about DNA. It's about the size of your body. You know.
Yeah. And it took a lot of hard work on my mind. You know, going to therapy and all that kind of stuff to
Did you? You went to therapy to help you work through it?
Yeah. Have to.
And how did it help? What did it do?
I think probably the biggest thing is letting go. And also being comfortable enough with having, in my case, an honest man's pillow, knowing that I could go to bed without stressing about, if I did that, I tried my ass off and it didn't work out. And it's okay as well. That's the other thing. I guess it's so easy to say. I've been really lucky. I've had things go my way in this chapter of my life. Maybe when, the coin got flipped to whatever benevolent God you may or may not believe in when they were coming up with whatever it was that the future had in store for me, it's worked out for me more than it hasn't in this chapter. But the same ethos of, working hard and all that kind of thing gives me the best opportunity. But if things don't work out, that's okay too. It's happened before. It might happen again and I'll be okay.
Success can bring stress, which is kind of sad in a way. Like you get what you want and then you're so scared it won't last that you really stress about working really hard to make sure it does last. I mean, that's one way of approaching it. The other way of approaching it is just being super grateful and thinking it's fantastic and being really chill and happy. Which category are you falling into at the moment, given you're in a part of your life that's working? Yeah.
I still get confused. Like sometimes I still forget the chapter of life I'm in. And so I'll be like, why are people looking at, that's...
I'm on TV.
Yeah. That's why. And I find the whole, like the whole notion of sort of like telly and all that kind of stuff, it's really funny because when you're in a public eye for a job, there's kind of like this duality. It's like, I like the work. I like doing all the work. I don't necessarily love the attention that comes with it, but I understand as well that is a part of it. So yeah, I'm super grateful. That's for sure. And I reckon I've come from an even more fickle industry in footy. I reckon it's even more fickle than the media landscape. So I've seen how quickly the wind can change. So I'm just trying to enjoy it, man.
Yeah.
Trying to enjoy all of it because far out, you know what it's like. You just end up in some bloody weird situations. You're just interviewing some people and you're like, holy crap, that was Oprah. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Whoa. I mean, this is freaking weird. And then you're like, gee whiz, Oprah's kept me waiting. I'm upset about this, And you're like, what universe am I in? Shut up, Tone.
That's when you're really famous. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's like, I interviewed her once and I had to get back to Melbourne. I was away with my girlfriend and I had to get back to Melbourne for Melbourne Writers Week. I was on a panel and I had to get up at like 5 a.m. to interview Oprah because she was coming from North America. It was like one of those junkets, you get like 5 minutes. For the listener, you get like, you just sit there waiting in like a holding Zoom link, imagine this, and then boom, there it is. It's like, there's Oprah. And you're like, whoa. And
Welcome
then you've got
the show.
Yeah. And then as you know, you've got like the publicist in the corner going 3 minutes left. But the thing was they kept pushing back the interview. So then I was upset because I was letting people down back in Melbourne. I was about an hour and a half out that I was going to be late to another panel. So I'm like, oh, bloody, But I mean, it's a good excuse. You rock up and you go, yeah, sorry, guys.
It's better than traffic. Yeah.
Oh, no, Oprah's held us up.
Late.
I think we can understand that, guys. But yeah, so, you gotta pinch yourself sometimes and go, far out. That wasn't on the bingo card.
A question I would never get asked in an interview would be, what's it like getting abused because of your race, or what's it like being a spokesperson for your people?
Yeah.
No one's ever going to ask that of me for obvious reasons.
Hey man, stuff it. Let's make it you.
No thanks.
What's it like? No, Tom. What's it like having I guess every single part of the system work in your advantage? What's that like?
Well, I don't even notice it, Tony. So there you go.
Pretty good.
Exactly. So that obviously you've talked about this. It just brings another layer of pressure and stress. Is that hard for you, or have you found a way to kind of compartmentalize it, or how do you deal with it?
Nah, man, it's ever evolving. I think you go through that's such footy speak. I go through
Yeah.
oh yeah, I go through I guess different phases. Sometimes I'm feeling really like I want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak, and just go hack. I get really angry and frustrated, and sometimes I find it takes a lot for me to find a balanced, articulate way to talk about things where I still say what's important. I still run it straight, so to speak, but I'm not the message isn't lost in the way that I'm in the way that I'm delivering it, because I think that's really important, because I do find that whenever I have spoken out or whenever I do, I've got to make sure it's measured, because the second there's something else that can be spoken about rather than the message, that ends up inevitably being what is spoken about. Oh, geez, he was so angry. I wish he had have delivered that in a certain way. So there's like that way that I do it and feel, but then other times it makes me quite sad as well. Not sad necessarily to do it, just sad that it has to be done.
When you say it has to be done, what do you mean exactly?
Oh, like for instance, I sometimes think we walk past a lot of. I sometimes think we walk past circumstances that need to be addressed, and sometimes they aren't. And I feel a responsibility, which I'm both grateful for and trying to live up to speak and to not walk past it, because I have been afforded this very unique space. I've been afforded a very unique space within Australia's social and media landscape, I think, where I know my voice carries. And so that's really important. And it's important to me and my friends and my family that, I'm doing the best I can, and I'm going to stuff up in terms of, I'm going to miss opportunities. That's inevitably going to happen. But I'm always going to do my best. But I do feel that responsibility always of, like you said when you asked the question, it's just another layer. I even felt it when I became the first Aboriginal person to commentate play-by-play in the commercial AFL landscape on radio.
Wow. Okay.
And I felt that pressure going into the box. I remember being like, geez, if I stuff this up, it's unfairly going to be that will then be a judgment that is cast on the next person coming through.
You're carrying the weight of all those other Indigenous kids that would have loved to have been there for maybe decades or more. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it's just one of those things where I just have another layer of thought I've been asked before, do you think it's fair? But it just is.
Nothing's fair.
Nah, exactly.
It's like
it
life
just
is a mess.
Yeah, life's relentless. It comes at you.
Okay, so you're talking about you're making a lot of calculations on the run. You're thinking about people's expectations. You're balancing out your own feelings. You talked about there are moments you feel rage, but you have to think carefully about when and how to share that message, how people will read it. That's a lot of very complex calculations you're making on the run. And from my observation, you've done incredibly well to balance that.
Thank you.
Really, like
think
about the moments where you've really gone for it. Sometimes, you've called Australians racist. You've then been challenged about that and backed it up. But then you've been able to turn around and do the fun chit chat on the couch the next morning on TV. You've had to respond to The Voice. You knew that people would want to know what you'd think about it. You were a mix of being self-deprecating and honest, but also earnest. So, yeah, I think you've run an amazing set of calculations in that brain of yours, mate.
Oh, mate, that's really nice. I think, to be honest, I've just tried to be as true to myself as well. Like, with my friends, even with some of my best friends from school, for instance, I know that when I get really upset and I guess I should preface this by saying there will be no judgment from them if I was to ever, be, so upset, so emotional. But then even then, when I reflect on, say, how a conversation may have gone, that conversation is how were you, like just how are you, rather than what is it? Like do you know what I mean? So even then, in my personal life, I've found the most success has been trying to always make those always try to be as close to myself and honest in the way that I think is the best way to get a message across or the best way to be compelling. Yeah.
I mean, that's something we all have to do to some extent, but it seems to be there's a whole nother layer of complexity and pressure when you're an identifiable Indigenous bloke.
Oh, dude, I tell you what, I reckon the first 6 times I was on the project, it was so funny. I was like, oh, no, like another huge issue. And it just so happens to have come out on the day I'm on the desk. And and it's like, if you've ever – I know this is to our audience who's listening. It's crazy when you do the project because you'll be talking about, I don't know, a dog taking a shit in someone's backyard, and then it's like bang, pivot.
Next minute,
pivot into the most heavy thing ever, and then everyone on the desk just, boom, they turn their heads and they'll look at you coming off the back of a package, and you just go, I'm going to sum that up in 45 seconds.
And the producer's in your ear going, all right, we've got 45 seconds, go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, mate, the floor is yours, the slate is clean. 45 seconds, I keep it tight.
Yeah. It is crazy, the pressure. And no one else on that desk is experiencing exactly the same pressure you're under because of who you are. And it's, there's tough examples throughout history of what an Indigenous person can say without kind of losing the audience. And your hero, Adam Goodes, is the most probably heartbreaking example of this. Someone who was a massive hero but seemed to lose some of the audience and not a very nice part of the audience in the AFL community because of how he expressed his Aboriginality and what he chose to take on and how he expressed himself, and people turned on him. Was that an example that you always kept a bit of an eye on?
Yeah, man. I mean, just with Goodsy, I've had the privilege of I get emotional thinking about Goodsy. I have had the privilege of knowing him from a pure fan point of view, and then the privilege of then getting to know him as a teammate, and now knowing him as a dear friend. And watching what happened to him almost like I had a front row seat, you know. I was right there, and it was incredible to see how everyone just wanted to ignore the facts. Everyone ignored the facts. Like, even weeks, months later, some of the rhetoric was he was carrying on. He was making too much of a deal of it. Wasn't he a bit of a sook? You know, isn't he a bully? I mean, it was, still is probably the biggest hit job I've ever seen. You know, like, this bloke has called out racism in his workplace. One of the greatest people to do that job of all time. And he got, it was like he was whacked by the mob. It was insane viewing, and like all he was doing was calling it how he seed it. And I think that is the thing that our country likes the least. We really struggle to face up to where we're at times, and it's really frustrating because I think we perceive ourselves as one thing. And I don't think we're quite what we think we are.
Oh yeah, we're really cruisy, but you know,
yeah, we're really cruisy. Give us a rule, though. Give us a rule.
Yeah, exactly. And we're really rebellious. No, we're not.
No, mate. No. We are the most law-abiding joint almost in the world. Anyway,
so boring.
Not that I'm saying like go out there and, you know, steal cars and all that kind of stuff, but it's like we're very subservient to authority is, I guess, so cooked into our DNA. I think people don't even realize it.
So are you calibrating the Adam Goodes pain and the Adam Goodes experience of the way his career ended into that equation that you're using to work out how to respond to really intense things in public?
Thank you for asking the question again, because I realized I didn't answer it. Yes. But I guess at a subliminal level, I'm not doing, okay, the red mist is descending here. I'm angry about this. Goodsy. I think it's more having been so close to it, you know, it's like permanently cooked into you in the way that you fall out of a tree at a really young age, and then you've always got that somewhere. You might be inherently then afraid of heights or risk or whatever it might be.
Oh, what a journey. So just the last thing on this topic, when the no vote came through, you put up this graphic of a broken heart in the Indigenous flag and said shattered. Yeah. What are your thoughts on it now, and where to next, if anywhere, for that bigger national conversation? How do you, it feels like it's sort of dropped off the agenda despite everyone who was voting no saying there were better ways to do it. Where are we now?
Oh, far out. Well, I think we're further back. Maybe, I guess, to be honest, we're in the exact same place. We're stagnant. To give an example of just kind of how these movements don't always end, like you don't always end up with positive results. Like, do you remember all the goodwill from Black Lives Matter? Do you remember how buoyed and how hopeful everyone was feeling? I think for like 2 years after that, deaths in custody, the rate of deaths in custody was actually climbing. So there's like a real disconnect, I think, with what we feel and what is. And right now, I mean, there's so many people putting in hard work, like fighting for what they think is best, fighting from within a system. I don't know enough about law, to be honest, to know how and what could change and what will change. I'm still quite defeated, to be honest. I remember watching, and it was so quick. it was demoralizing. Like, you're watching you're watching the telecast because like they know, right? They call the states and the territories. And it's got bang, 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 bang. And before you knew it, like it was like, oh, I've barely sat down.
Yeah, you're settling in for a night on the couch with Anthony Green, where it's going to at least drag
Anthony
till after
Green,
dinner.
he's got the boards going. It's like, and then before you know it, it's like, I mean, we sound flippant, and I sound flippant, but it was, just sad again. Like, I just know there's a lot of people who have worked for so long who won't ever see the fruits of their labor, unfortunately, and that makes me sad for them.
Let's talk about some things that are a lot more fun. Like, we started the conversation talking about partying. We met on a big night out, and I was doing a bit of research for this interview, and I heard you talking to Zan Rowe, and a lot of gratuitous references to aux chords and at kick-ons and choosing the tunes. And you through that interview, I learned you had a real affinity with kind of euphoric dance music. But then it's occurred to me,
you knew that.
I knew that. It was see it on your face. That it was like you've had the least suitable careers for someone who likes a good night out. You were a football player, so I mean, people sort of see them as they see them out Monday in the paper, but really, a lot of the time you got to kind of keep it under.
That's a life of abstinence generally. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And now you've got a job that's a 2 a.m. start on ABC News Breakfast. So exactly the wrong time of day. So, and you're still only young. You're 34.
Yeah.
Is there time where you relax? How do you do you, given your life and your work?
I'll find a way. Don't worry. You have to. I'll find a way. I'll tell you what though. Like I think I'm just so good at sleeping. Like
it's a good skill.
Yeah. So in the middle of the week, in between doing my bits and bobs, I'll sleep so much during the day. Drop of a hat, I get my sleep because I do value my time with my friends, going to see gigs, going to watch bands, watching Rona play, all that kind of stuff. It is fun, you know. We both know how fun it is, and people listening, you all know how nice it is to kind of. It's not necessarily escapism because I like what I do, but it's nice to be able to have your focus kind of. It's almost a form of mindfulness, I think, being present in a conversation or present in a moment with your friends at dinner or at the club or whatever it might be. So, yeah, I think having that duality is really important for me. And I know at some point that duality will look different. But yeah, I mean, I'm still enjoying it while it lasts.
Yeah. Well, the thing I got from listening to your story a bit more is, you know, you're an only child, and from what I can gather, an extreme extrovert. You got your energy from people. That's why you love footy, connecting with the team, being part of the brotherhood, the club. Your job is very social, and I think that's why it's working for you. It sits well with you, whereas for some people that really drains their energy being around a lot of people. We all need to recharge to some extent. But I'm an extreme extrovert as well. I love being surrounded by people. It's how I grew up. It feeds you, and for you, it seems like that's why this phase of life is, even though it's hard work and terribly early starts, it's working for you because it suits your personality. It's you.
Yeah, I mean, and like the hard work aspect of it. I mean, that's by choice. It's why we both work hard. You know, like there's a sense of professional pride and personal pride as well in trying to do a good job. You don't always. We all, in whatever job you do, but then yeah, I mean, I love being around people. I love that. I also do love coming home pulling the blinds down. They're down now. And just like sinking into the couch and just, phone down. I think I'm extreme both ways, if I'm being honest. Seriously, sometimes after a huge week, I will come home and I will just not talk to anyone for 12 hours, and that's the best. But then I'm like, cool, time to go out. The vampire comes out of the coffin, and out I go. But I mean, how lucky to be afforded the opportunity to be in a space where connecting with people, connecting through screens or through ears as well, is how I make my living. I can't believe it. I mean, cop that, all the teachers who said I talk too much. Cop that, you dogs. Nah. Yeah. I don't mean that. Nah, they're all actually
you were just
really
warming
lovely.
Up. You were practicing.
No, to be honest, I actually had a great relationship with all my teachers because I think I made them laugh. They were like, "Oh, you're not going to go anywhere, but you're funny."
Just you wait.
Yeah.
Hey, before we let you go, let's just touch on the podcast, The Pool Room. It's one of your many projects. Really quirky sports stories, like Arthur, the first bloke to ride across the Nullarbor on a push bike. What do you love about doing this podcast?
What I love, if we go back a step, like sort of, if you think before the podcast, you and I, we met trading stories, deep and meaningful, like chats, all that kind of stuff. But being someone who loves being around people, I love telling stories and ripping yarns. Like, when you hear someone tell a tall tale and you're like, oh my God. Well, this is what that podcast is, right? It's 10, like you can just imagine at the dinner table in a social setting, someone having just got off the tram or out of the Uber or whatever it might be. They walk into the pub and they go, yo, have you heard this? And just holding court for 10 minutes, ripping a yarn about whoever it might be. And you go, geez, that is sick. Well, that's what this podcast is. Like, that's it. It's 10 minutes, roughly. They're these brilliant sporting stories, ones you haven't heard before. Like, we've all heard about Kathy Freeman winning 400 at the Sydney Olympics. Yeah. But, we haven't heard about the Japanese marathon runner who got lost and then found 20 years later. Like we haven't heard these stories. We haven't heard the stories about, the flying or the non-flying Dutchman. We haven't heard all of these stories. And they're a great way to learn about the weird stuff that happens in sport that I think makes sport so great. It brings together people from all walks of life, chucks them into all sorts of circumstance, and then they're all trying their best. So, yeah, I love that. I love doing the podcast, and I hope people enjoy listening because it's a lot of hard work goes into it from a lot of very clever people. So, yeah. Yeah,
it is told like you've just stepped up into the bar and given your best 10 minutes, but you can tell there's a lot of research and history that goes into that story.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's The Pool Room. Get around it in your favourite podcast app with Tony Armstrong. And, there's many things we could discuss, but let's leave it here for now. Life is long.
Mate, thank you so much. It's so nice to have a chat with you, man. I always love seeing what you're doing. And, last time we spoke, you weren't a father. It looks bloody good on you, mate. Congratulations.
That was Tony Armstrong. That was such an enjoyable conversation. An amazing journey he's been on, and so reflective, but still funny at the same time. Amazing. Thank you so much for listening as well. Love to know what you thought of that interview. Please DM the briefing on Instagram or jump into the comments on the post on Instagram. And if you want more of these types of interviews, the best thing you can do, and this also helps us reach more followers as well, is to make sure you're subscribing if you're listening in Apple Podcasts, or follow if you're listening on Spotify, or whatever it is in the app that you're listening. Please follow us and subscribe. It helps us bring you all the interviews that we produce. Also helps us find other listeners in those apps. And of course, don't forget there is the Listener app as well, which is basically a great content house of all these amazing podcasts. So that's the Listener app, spelled listener without the E. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll catch you again very soon.
listener.